everyone. My name is Rachele, and I chose to do my paper on labor union trends in the United States. First, I start off with a history of labor unions, including how they started off as craft unions during the Revolutionary War almost 200 years ago, to the first national unions that started to pop up, to regulations and laws that affect unions even today. Next, I move on to the benefits and drawbacks of unionization, both from the employee side and the employer side. And I actually chose to focus on the wage gap that is associated with unionized workers versus non-unionized. And just so you know, unionized workers tend to make 21% more median wage each week than non-unionized workers. Next, I focus on the overall participation from 1983 to 2015, which is the information that I got from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And actually, 1983 is the first year that they have comparable data, to compare more modern years with for that. Also, I thought a really interesting part of this whole thing is that labor unions have actually been on a steady decline since 1983, and one of the main reasons that some of the sources that I found have said for why that is actually women and minorities entering the workforce, and they have less strong ties to labor unions and tend to unionize a lot less than white men, for example. So next, I move on to participation in labor unions by state. Just a fun fact, New York is actually the state with the highest union participation rate at almost 25%. And states like Georgia and South Carolina are down there at under 5%. And then, in my practical application, I actually was lucky enough to talk to 3 union presidents at Winona State. Daryl Downs from the IFO union, which is the union that your professors tend to be part of. I also talked to Sarah Olcott, which is the MUSAF or ASF president, and that's your administrators and that sort of thing. And I also got to talk to Sheila Rinn, who is the AFSCME president on campus. And overall, kind of what I read from them is that their participation rates on campus are actually kind of defying the national odds. They tend to stay, pretty much borderline or even increase in numbers throughout the last 5 or so years that they could give me. So that's really, really interesting. And that's actually pretty common in higher education because, teachers and that sort of thing tend to be part of unions anyways. So there's that. And then I also got to talk to my mom, who is actually an HR coordinator up in Red Wing at the Red Wing Shoe. And she told me about the 2 unions that she works with, which are the Boot and Shoe Union and the Teamsters Union. Boot and Shoe is, kind of a craft union and works with shoemakers and that sort of thing. And Teamsters is actually a national, kind of more broad, works with more industries kind of union. And she said the exact opposite of what I heard from the campus unions is that in the last, 5, 6, 7 years or so, their numbers have decreased by up to 20% in their participation. So that was really, really interesting. But I guess overall, I really, really learned a lot from, writing this paper and doing the research in that, I think someone who wants to go into a career in HR really, really needs to understand unions and kind of how they work and where they came from, where they are today, and some of the benefits and drawbacks of that. And I know for myself personally, I would love to go into HR in higher education. Working in the HR office on campus, I found it really, really fun and really beneficial. And on a university campus, you're going to run into unions all the time. So it's really, really important to understand them as best you can. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my paper and my presentation.